Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hello there, you amazing people. Welcome to the Amazing Action Comics podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with Phil Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It is going. It's Thursday, day after Wednesday. We got our comics, so I'm a happy boy. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I love that opening music. I feel so athletic. I dig it, man. It really gets me pumped up.
Yeah, I do like 10 push-ups while it's playing, and then I come back and sit down.
So I did half of one in that time. That's what I like. So.
Oh, I'm liking that mug. What is that?
This is a Superman mug. It's like there used to be a thing called the Warner Brothers stores. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes.
And there was one at the Roosevelt Field Mall in Long Island where I went to college. And I remember getting this freshman year. So this is like a 30-year-old mug I've had.
That's pretty cool.
It's just all these old clips of like classic, Superman stuff, like 1940s stuff. It's really cool. I like it.
It's holding all the color and everything. I like that.
It has held the color. Yeah.
Well, wait. So speaking about Superman, because it's not independent, but it's becoming public domain soon, isn't it?
There's that whole thing, yeah, where like, and I'm always shaky on this kind of stuff. I'm very fascinated by it, but I don't know. It always feels like the rules are different. But like, Action Comics #1 becomes public domain very soon, and what that entails is that anybody could do a Superman story using what was specifically in Action Comics #1. So like I think we said before, you can't use Daily Planet, you got to use Daily Star. You can't use Perry White, you got to use George Taylor. You have access to very limited scope of Superman's powers and the fact that he comes from an alien planet. You have Lois Lane. Things that were added later are not yet going to be in the public domain, but from now it's something from what I understand or was looking into or told recently, but eventually anything subsequent will eventually become in the public domain. I always thought it was different. I always thought once they sold it and then it became work for hire, and then other people started contributing to what Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster started, that was all still under that company umbrella. So I really don't know. If anybody knows, you want to comment, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be, because
there's a comment box somewhere on the internet.
Because as far as we know, he doesn't fly in Action Comics, right?
He leaps and bounds, buddy.
and stops bullets and is faster than a locomotive.
Yeah.
So we have to find out how fast the fastest locomotive was back in the 40s.
Yep.
And that's as fast as he can go, which is probably only about 65 miles an hour. So he can go as fast as your Tesla.
Even that sort of phrasing was came on later. That was a result of like the radio show. And the radio show actually introduced a ton of elements in the 40s and then were grafted into the comics. So him flying started with the Fleischer Brothers animated.
Right.
But the radio show, I think, introduced Perry White. I think the radio show introduced Jimmy Olsen. I believe the radio show definitely introduced Kryptonite as a thing. Because Bud Collyer, the voice actor, he's like, I need a vacation. And so what they did was they wrote this story where he succumbs to kryptonite, just finds kryptonite. It's the first time he encounters it. And then he gets to take 2 weeks off because he's too sick, right? So he's all laid up. And then they bring in Radio Batman and Robin, and they kind of take over the show for 2 weeks while Bud Collyer is kicking it up on the beach somewhere. And then they brought kryptonite from the radio into the comics. So a lot of barnacles added,
yeah. That's funny. Out of necessity, right?
Yeah. So if I need a vacation from this, we're going to come up with my kryptonite.
Yeah, that's funny.
Maybe magic. That's also Superman's kryptonite.
But that's later canon. That's much.
Far later. Yeah.
All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Indie Comic Review. This is episode 102. Woo! I can't believe we're that far in. It's already good. And we have a couple of books for you this week. I think we just have one piece of news for today before we just jump into the reviews. And we don't have that many books this week. Well, you know what? Let's talk about two things, right? Let's do what you were going to do. And then I want to talk about the status of books every week since the new year started.
All right. Very good. Not much to talk about in that aspect, because there's not that much these last few books.
Correct.
So the guy Bad Comics Reviews on YouTube check this guy out. He's really good. He just put up about 14 hours ago. He put up his latest review of Project Shadowbreed Volume 2, Issue 2, which we reviewed last week or the week before. I forget now. They all run together.
Last week.
It was last week, and and he was a very favorable review. It's one of those things where it's called Bad Comics Reviews, but he likes a lot of what he reviews, which is good. He picked up on a lot of cool things that I picked up from reading that book, so I like that. We were simpatico on that. He also reviewed issue 1 about 8 months ago. He liked that as well. Gave you a really nice compliment on your cover, and actually noted something that I felt as well was the Seekers have these masks on the cover that look really badass and cool, and they're not in the book. And he was sort of like, "Hey, Justin, bring them back with masks." But he a really nice compliment. And one of the best things he said was, "It's better than the output of the big 2 right now." And then he got something from it that I got, that it really felt like a fun, action-heavy indie comic from the 80s, and it was exactly the vibe that I got from it that I really enjoyed. So thanks. I get, on behalf, I guess, of Angel and Justin, I'm just going to say thank you, Mr. Comics Review. I guess your first name is Bad. But he, it was a really cool review, and it was nice to see that somebody got the same thing out of the book that I got, which I think is something that you strive for, right? People to really get this grasp the same thing.
It is, and it's really, really just, it feels really good when people get what we're doing, and the fact that he just used all those trigger words, I want to just say and put it out there, of what the book is. So thank you guys for reviewing the book, liking the book, and we got plenty coming down the pipe. So if you're interested, just hop over to AmazingActionComics.com and see what we got going on over there, and we've got some other stuff that's coming down the stream that we're really excited about as well. So the only other thing that I wanted to mention, since the beginning of the year, it's been really sort of like wishy-washy when it comes to content. And I think it's not a bad thing. I think by the end of last year, we were flooded with so much content coming down the pipe at the very end of the year, which, is good and bad, right? So you have so much content. Is any of it worthwhile reading? Is it more quantity than quality? And this is not just, the big 2, but even sort of like the small press and independent, and even with some of the stuff that was going on with like Aftershock going through bankruptcy and not putting the stuff out. And then all of a sudden we had like 20 books from them in a week, which is crazy. Then we open up the new year, and it's, the big 2 are doing whatever they're doing. But we look at small press, we look at more of like the independent stuff and the creator own stuff, that just kind of like minimized itself out at the very beginning of the year. And we've been doing maybe I think the most that we did was 4 books in one particular week.
Yep.
And so in this week we only have 2. So it seems like the content for small press, creator owned stuff is lighter at this first quarter, which is not too bad, considering, with the way that the market's flooded, but then it gives us less to read and content for the show. So I'm hoping that it kind of levels off. And it's funny because one of the customers and I were talking, and Vanish. Remember that book Vanish? It's Cates and Stegman are on that book. And it got to issue, I think, 3 or 4.
4.
4, and it dropped.
Well, 5. There was a coming soon issue 5.
Right.
But
and it's been months.
It's back on track. But if you recall, a lot of things Donny Cates has been doing have fallen off track.
Right.
And he had to walk away from a couple of his bigger books like Hulk and Thor. Right after their big crossover, to the point where Ryan Otley, the penciler on Thor, on Hulk, has been writing the last couple issues. The other book that Cates had for Image, crossover, just vanished as well in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
So something was going on with Donny Cates. I think a customer at the store mentioned they had seen something on his Substack or his social media, something. I guess that he was going through a divorce. And I guess that kind of derailed a lot of things. So that I feel right now is a bit of an anomaly. You do have situations like for DC's Black Label, the Swamp Thing Green Hell.
Yep.
There were a year between issues
Yep,
1 and
yep,
issue
yep.
2. Some of that could do with the paper situation with those books, their tabloid size and blah, 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 different paper, not continuity minded. I also feel like maybe, something happened where Doug Mahnke, who's a really great detailed artist, might have fallen behind. But yeah, books like Vanish kind of disappeared. There's, other ones that we like, the Fright Night book, right? That
Right.
took another almost year between 2 issues,
Yeah, but the problem with that though is that if we look at if you had Superman drop off for 6 months or a year and then a new book came out, people are going to just pick it up because it's Superman.
Yeah.
But
or when you're at a big company like that, you have inventory stories to fill that gap in certain situations as well.
But when you're
there will always be content. Yeah.
But when you're dealing with like creator owned and small press stuff and it disappears for 6 months or whatever it is, without any like, hey guys, this is what's going on. Then when it comes back, it's just not going to be the same, and it's probably just going to fall off. And some of these stories are great, and the fact that we just got less content at this first quarter is just kind of has me worried a little bit in regards to where the scene is for small press and creator-owned stuff. I'm just hoping that it's just going to be just a little bit of a dip and it kind of picks back up again. So we'll see what happens because, without that, we're not going to have a podcast.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I mean, one of the things for this week, though, that I noticed was a lot of books that we had number ones just about 4 to 5 weeks ago, right? Not a clean 4 weeks on some of them. A lot of number twos came out this week, like Black Tape, Blood Tree, Breath of Shadows 2 came out last week, Where Monsters Lie 2. So there's still like a lot of that good content, but we're not reviewing issue number 2s.
Correct.
So that's a call to you creators out there. Forget about second issues. Just give us first issues, like 50 first issues every week. Give us a lot to choose from.
50 first issues. That would be fantastic. So that's just my little rant for the week. All right, so we're going to hop into the reviews that we have for you this week. We do have 2. We're going to let Phil and I both read one comic that's the same. He failed to mention that he read a second comic.
I totally forgot because I'm a dope.
That's all right. So we're going to hop into that first one. So why don't you go with the first one, which is?
This is the one I didn't tell you about?
Correct.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
This is the book. There you go. It's a comic. This is from AHOY Comics, and it is called The Gimmick. So you get there. This is the variant cover, just so you know. And this is so you've read a couple AHOY things, like Loaded Bible, I think is one of theirs. The Wrong Earth.
I read only one issue. The Wrong Earth, I definitely really liked.
Or Second Coming. Second Coming, not Loaded Bible, but
no, Loaded Bible. Yeah, I think that was. I can't remember who that was. That was another small press though.
I feel like I might have read something from AHOY, but I just can't recall it right now, and it's not in their back catalog in the back here.
Right.
But they do some pretty cool stuff. A lot of the stuff's a little offbeat, a little irreverent, I've noticed. Always like with kind of a sense of humor from the stuff that I've kind of looked into. And this is no different. This is very much a wrestling story, and I think in some ways it scratches the itch from the lack of any more Do a Powerbomb since that ended with its 7-issue run. So if you really like that, this might be something you want to check out. The line work is, I'm going to say Daniel Warren Johnson adjacent, a lot thinner lines and less vibrant colors. It reminds me a lot more of like a Phil Hester, but yet with still some thinner lines as well. So I dug it, though. I thought the art really lent itself to what was happening in the book. I don't want to give away too much here, but one of the things I really dug is you're following a guy who is a wrestler domestically in the United States who actually has superpowers and has kept them hidden. And then he's in a tag team match against a guy who was basically just put out there as a Nazi, neo-Nazi, named Schmidt. And he's the whole thing with the armband and the jackboots and, real leaning into that heel, that bad guy aspect. And he bullies his partner in the ring in a way, I guess, that wasn't scripted or expected. And it really upsets your main character. So he punches the guy so hard that his head explodes. He uses his superpowers, and it's just a half splash page of just his fist going through Schmidt's head right at the beginning of the book. So I'm just more setup, right? Just boom, punches him right to that, and it's on live TV. And so all these people see it, including apparently at least one woman who has this guy's child as well. Because the kid is watching this, like 1-year-old's watching this on TV, goes "da," and then punches his fist through the TV screen. So the kid has inherited the powers as well. So they rush the guy out of there. He gets help from an older wrestler who's acknowledged his career is at an end, and they go to Mexico to create a new identity. And that's sort of where you pick up, where he is given the luchador, the Santos type mask, to wrestle in Mexico, but he's got to hide his identity. And he's just like, I don't know, this is too much like Santos. I want to do something. So the guy who's helping him just draws like a cartoon mustache and beard on it. He goes, here you go. So now he's just got this marker of like a mustache and beard, and that's going to be his wrestling identity going forward. You do have a couple other threads, not only the woman with the child, but there's the daughter of the man that he accidentally killed, who you find out this guy Schmidt, who for many years people thought he was German. He was playing a German. His last name is actually Lopez. And apparently he is estranged from his daughter, but you almost get a sense that that's not fully the truth either when you kind of see what she's going to do or wants to do or might do by the end of the first issue. So it's called The Gimmick. It is steeped in kind of wrestling culture. If you enjoyed Do a Power Bomb, check this out. I think the mystery is there, and how these threads are going to come together are really, really cool and a really good setup. It's got a pull quote on the cover by Patton Oswalt, so he likes good stuff. But I really enjoyed it. I love the art and the color palette. Really good first issue. You do also get 2 prose stories with like a spot illustration in the back. One very timely. It's an interview with an AI that thinks it's a dead playwright, which is kind of interesting. And another was a really, really dysfunctional father-son story.
Nice.
So real quick prose reads. They're not super long. But I thought that was nice to have these 2 other things added to the book that were completely separate from the main book.
Cool. All right. The Gimmick from AHOY Comics. Check it out.
Yeah.
Ahoy there. All right. So let's hop into our second and final book. This one is coming to you from Dark Horse. It's called Clear. It's a Scott Snyder book who we enjoy on the show.
Yep.
And art by Francis Manapul. What I found really, really crazy about this is Francis on this particular book did a Dan Mora. So he did covers A, B, C, D, and E. He did all the covers pretty much. It's crazy. It's just these 2 guys on the book. And 2 really talented guys. I mean, Scott Snyder, we've been reading, his small press stuff. Like, what was the last one from IDW?
There was Dark Spaces Wildfire,
Correct.
which was the first of the IDW originals.
Yep.
Dark Spaces will continue, I guess, under his purview, because there's a new Dark Spaces series coming, but he's not writing it. But I think he's kind of overseeing that sort of brand within the IDW originals.
Right.
He also, with Dark Horse, he also had the We Have Demons.
Yep, which was great. 3 issues. Yep.
3 chunky issues. Night of the Ghoul with Francis Manapul, 3 chunky issues. We Have Demons with his Batman collaborator Greg Capullo.
Greg Capullo, yep.
And then now we have Clear, which again, I think based on this chunky issue, I think this is going to be another 3 chunky issues through Dark Horse. And the other thing that those 3 with Dark Horse have in common is they were all Comixology originals.
Yes.
As this one. So we'll see how long that brand is going to last, but
it's not, because it's done by October, so we'll see what happens.
That's official. That's come out, right?
Yeah, because they're going to be downsizing their entire staff down to just literally one person who's just going to be looking at the computer, making sure that the server doesn't go down.
Right, like Twitter,
which is crazy, like Twitter. Exactly. All right, so Clear from Dark Horse Comics, Scott Snyder. So if you know Scott Snyder, whenever he does an issue 1, just get prepared to read. And this one does not disappoint. And in all fairness, he gives a lot of background and a lot of meat to the story. It's not just writing for writing's sake, and then really complement it with the art and colors of Francis Manapul on this. So it's really cool. It's set in the future. And instead of being this future where it's like a post-apocalyptic future, which I think the first half of last year was all post-apocalyptic stuff.
There's lots of buildings. This makes up for the lack of buildings in a lot of the post-apocalyptic future stories.
Exactly. However, the future is dreary and drab because what's happening, and this reminded me a lot of that movie Surrogate with Bruce Willis. But instead of having like these, avatars that went out into the world for you because you were like lying in your bed and your robot avatar was out there, you have what's called a veil. And basically it's a program that's installed so that whatever you're looking at is whatever you want to see. So whether it's going to be like a mythical world that has dragons, a futuristic world of whatever, whatever you want to see as your veil, you purchase, and that's how you interact in the world. So you're interacting with real people in the world, but you're seeing them as you want to see them through your veil, which is really weird because I would order a veil that just had everybody naked.
That actually, I think they say that is one of the options.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Where everybody is attracted to you.
Yes, but
but you can't act on it, right?
You can't act on it.
It's a little weird, yeah.
Correct. So you basically have sort of like this detective whose name's Sam Dunes, who's one of the few people that you read throughout the issue that sees with clear eyes. So basically, he doesn't have a veil, so he sees the world for what it actually is, and the world is more bland than what most people think it's out there, because all these like corporations have set up these veils so the world itself is set up bland in the future, sort of like a green screen setup. So that way, whenever they put a veil on top of it, it's whatever you want that thing to be seen as. The only thing that really stands out that doesn't translate into veiled is old world stuff. Yep. So that stuff you see for as what it is. But everything else that's set up in that future world, the veil will take it over, and it's whatever you want it to be. So basically, what you find out, it's following him, and he's been hired as sort of like a PI to follow this one person for this woman who thinks that her husband is, buying veils, because what they do is they buy veils so that they see their spouses as someone else, which is fucking hysterical.
Nobody wants to see the person they're with as who they are, I think is what somebody says. And it's great.
Which is insane. So, yeah. So that's like a mini story within the overall arc of the story, because what we find out is that this woman that it opens up with, who is actually killed in the very beginning, or we think commits suicide, ends up being his wife. Yeah. And we find out at the very end that she gives him something that lets him know that, it wasn't a suicide, that she's been murdered. So we gave away a bit of the plot there, and I think we needed to, because this book is as interesting as the concept is. For me, it didn't work 100%. I think this would actually be phenomenal in a live action setting, just because the concept is so high concept that in order for you to see what people are looking at, he has to draw those panels out in those particular things. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. Some of it is like really like, it's not traditional panels. So the way that Francis is doing a lot of the artwork is like panel layouts over panels, so that you can kind of see what's being done in the panel and kind of how that panel is being portrayed in the veil. And that's really hard to pull off. I think so. Like artistically, it's beautiful to look at, but I think conceptually it's really hard to pass off, because you have to see what's going on in the panel and then decipher what the panel overview is if it's not being explained by the narrator, which is Scott Snyder in this particular instance. So that's what I found hard, and I was actually envisioning this as a live action, because I think it would be beautiful, and two, the concept would come across so much more crisp and clear. So the main story is really easy to follow because you have this guy doing whatever his thing is, and then we have a murder that happens, and we don't know what how they came to be divorced, or estranged or whatever it is in their relationship. That stuff is really easy to follow. The higher level concepts of the veil and what the veil represents and how people see through it, I think is really hard to pull off. And as as beautiful as France's art is, some of the panels to me they were out of sync for me. But yeah, I thought it was a really cool concept. I mean, to have sort of like the surrogate feel to it, but not the avatars, and have like sort of these programs embedded into your neurological system so that whatever you're looking at is completely different from what everybody else is seeing. So you could actually be talking to somebody who's looking at you, who thinks you're freaking naked right in front of you and stuff like that, which is weird. So I don't know. What'd you think?
I honestly didn't think I was going to like this as much as I did. I love both creators, but I kind of groaned at the concept a little bit. And that, again, the San Francisco 2052 right at the top, I was like, oh, and I felt like, and again, I see the sort of disconnect because this Sam Dunes is actually narrating. He's telling the story about this kid that told him this joke, quote unquote, but yet you're following the woman visually. And at first I was reading it as if this was her telling, this story. And so then I kind of had to go back once I saw what was going on. And then again, when she takes that dive and you see all these different realities as she's like almost passing through, again, you don't have that information that comes on the next page. So again, I wanted to go, once I got to that point of we're living circuit boards after all, it was only a matter of time. Your mind, the hard drive, your eyes, the screen. I went back and looked at those first 2 pages, and I was like, oh, okay, this actually gels. This makes sense. I think I like this because I've always had that thought of like, oh, that's where we're going. Like eventually you're just going to have in your eyeball, it'll be an Apple product, an Apple orb, an iPhone, if you will, that will do everything, right? And you like call whatever. So I kind of like this concept. I like that he has this sort of counter programming that he takes called clear,
right?
So he doesn't see that. And I like that he encounters somebody else that also is like him, sees things like him. This reminded me, this first issue reminded me a lot of one of my favorite DC series. I've talked about this before, The Question from the mid to late 80s. And one of the cool things, I don't want to spoil the end of this first issue. I don't want to, because that To Be Continued is a great moment.
Right.
And I don't want to do it for a 30-year-old comic either, almost 30-year-old comic. Oh, almost 40-year-old comic. But this reminds me very much like that, where by the end of the first issue, you're like, well, that just happened. Where does this book go from here? Right.
Right.
So so I like that. I like that cliffhanger. I thought that was great. And I also felt like this Sam Dunes guy, personality wise, was very similar to me to like some of the aspects of Vic Sage in that Denny O'Neil, Dennis Cohen Question series. So that really got me. I dug that. I love Francis Manipul's artwork. I think he is one of the few current artists that really carries that Jack Kirby torch. I think he everything is very Kirby-esque in what he does, and he does a great job of laying out panels and pulling your eye across the page. Really, really great line work, great storyteller. I've always said Scott Snyder brings out the best in his artists, but I kind of see what you're talking about as far as with his colors. His color palette is very vibrant and washy, and I feel like if it was like a more defined and I don't know, more reined in color style, I think it might work, because I think his coloring gives something that doesn't need to have a dreamlike quality, but the things that need to have a dreamlike quality, like what people are seeing in this veil, his coloring works really well. So I would have liked to have seen, I think, a change in color style a little bit more throughout this. But again, those colors are vibrant. They do pop. I think it's a great looking book. didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did, but I really did. It entertained me and it made me think, and I think that that's very important.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see if it ends up being sort of like that 3-issue miniseries stuff, because I mean, his last couple of books were.
Yeah.
Hopefully this follows in the same line. So we'll see. Check it out, guys. I mean, it was really trippy. It was like sort of like Blade Runner meets Surrogates, kind of, put all into one world. There, Clear from Dark Horse Comics. Yeah, Michael Richardson, keep doing your thing, bro. Because Dark Horse has not been disappointing.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, that's what we have for you this week. So cool. Yeah, if you like what you're hearing, please click subscribe to the podcast. You can listen to us on, Facebook, YouTube, any number of podcast channels that are out there. We're all over the place. If you actually like to join us and be on a show to promote yourself, you're a creator, want to promote yourself and or projects that you have coming up, amazingactioncomics.com/podcast. Great way to reach out to us. Let us know what you got going on, and we'd love to have you on. Please stay up to date on everything that we've got going on at Amazing Action Comics at amazingactioncomics.com. You'll find all the stuff that we got going on there, which is fantastic. Really important as well. Make sure that you support your local comic shops by getting out there every Wednesday. That's New Comic Book Day for most books. Tuesday, for some reason, which happened like 2 years ago, it's DC products. So yeah, you can go in Tuesday, get some DC stuff, and then get everything else on Wednesdays for New Comic Book Day. But please stop by, visit, show some support, spend a couple of dollars, keep those guys in business. Phil, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And it's funny, that Tuesday, Wednesday thing is great. You usually expect a lot of people just to wait and just come on Wednesday and get everything in the one day. But we got a few people that they're hardcore, man. They're there Tuesday for new books, and then they're there at 12 on Wednesday for new books too. And a shout out to those people. We also, great thing about Joker's Child is, I don't know if you noticed behind me, we got Pops. Pops are still a thing, guys. Yeah, some of them are going to be going away, about $30 million worth, but I'm working on a tunnel to get access to those. But yeah, at the Joker's Child, not only do we have all these great comics that we talk about, we have action figures, statues, and Pops, man. Some really cool ones. So check them out while they're still a thing.
Yeah,
that
do that.
Pops.
And feel free to visit us. If you can't, please, I can't implore you enough. Make sure you go and visit your local comic book shop. All right, that is all that we have for you this week. We will see you next Thursday, same bat time, same bat place. And until then, please be amazing, stay amazing, and read something amazing.